Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Rework It. Hi, Jesús. How's it going?
Hey, Kladi, I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, good. Thank you. Finally, a sunny day here in Manchester. What
Wow.
about you? Where are you streaming from?
I am in the San Francisco Bay, and it's been sunny for the last couple days.
Fantastic. But I wanted to say hello to the wonderful people here in the chat. I can see Michelle Fournier and Sam Peterson helping us out with the amazing clickable links here in the chat. Of course, as usual, if you're watching from YouTube, make sure to head on behance.net/live so we can read your comments, answer your questions during this hour together here at Rework It. I want to take a moment to also say hi to Biola. Remember submitting and looking at InDesign files. Carol Pearl, General Kenobi, and I see Jesús in the chat as well.
Yep, there I am.
Fantastic. Sean, nice to see you. Ciao, Steve. Steve saying ciao, Kladi. Hi, Kladi, and hi, Jesús.
Yeah.
Hi,
Richard is saying that oh, yeah, go ahead. You were just going to say that.
Yeah, there
Say
is
it.
sunny also in Liverpool. Fantastic. Thank you for letting us know, Richard. And also, there is anybody else from the UK, or let us know when you're watching from. We're always very excited to learn where everybody is watching. We love and enjoy our creative international community. So drop in the chat where you're tuning in from, because we'll be super excited to learn that. And before we get started, I think we're going to get started with you, Jesús, and Photoshop. But
Okay.
before we do
Do you
so,
want,
sorry?
yeah, let's talk a little bit about Rework It and how people can submit.
Yes, so I'm just going to jump real quick into my screen to share with everybody how to submit a file. And here we go. So in order to submit a file,
I'm sorry, I'm laughing because Carol's saying that she laughs or it kills her when you say her whole name.
I just like your name, Carol. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm just going to say Carol, but yeah, that's really funny.
Well, the thing is you're famous, Carol. Like when you're famous, people will say your entire name. They won't just say Carol. Like think of all the famous people you know. You always say their first and last name.
True, super true. And fantastic. But what I wanted to show you here is how to submit your file. So I can already see that the amazing Sam has already placed the link inside the chat for you to click and navigate to iamkladi.com/reworkit. This is the place where you can simply click on the button where it says submit your design, and you will see that there is a form that will come up. And in this form, you will be able to place your email and of course add your files, add your name, your Behance profile. Very important because we're here also to give you a shout out and promote you, and of course data consent and what app have you used, and of course if you have any specific question that you would like to ask us for regarding your work. And as I say all the time, Adobe Live is a safe space where we learn together. So don't worry, even if you have some work that maybe you want to finalize or you're not sure how to move forward, that's also perfect, a perfect file to submit to see maybe what me and Jesús, which kind of idea we can give you. We're looking in particular for InDesign, Illustrator, and Photoshop file. So make sure to submit because we have a few more episodes coming down the line and we are actively looking for new files. So submit.
Definitely. And two things. Sean is saying that Freddie, which is which is what my family calls me, Freddie loves the thumbs up button getting hit. That's right. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button. I don't know if it does anything, but I just like people clicking on it. And yeah, make sure that you submit those files. Like Kladi said, we're looking for Illustrator, InDesign, and Photoshop files. So make sure you submit now. Go, 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 go.
Fantastic. Are we ready to jump into your screen, Jesús?
We definitely are ready to jump into my screen, and let me make sure I'm looking at the file. There it is.
Fantastic.
And let me know if my here we are. Great. So before we start, let me just pull up the Behance page for today's artist. I believe his name is pronounced Ikra Ali. He's a UX design student out of New Delhi, India. And you can follow him here. This is his Behance page, and you can see some of his work. So thank you so much, Ikra, for submitting your file. So this is it right here. It's a beautiful double exposure effect. And as always, why don't we look through the layers and see how Ika created this effect. So I'm just going to click and drag down. I don't know if you guys know this. You can click and drag down to enable or disable the eye icon. See that? See, I'm just clicking and dragging down. So he started with a solid fill in the background, which I think is excellent. But the one thing that I find weird now is that he has a layer with all the pixels active. So usually if I have a layer with all the pixels active, I necessarily wouldn't you know, change the blending mode to, because what he's doing here is he's changing the blending mode to overlay at 66% so he can get the effect here. I probably would do it the other way around, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter since he gets the results that he wants. But just in terms of how my head organizes layers, I would have done it the other way around since the background is technically this, but again, doesn't really matter. It's just how my brain sees things. The one thing that I think does matter and it makes a huge difference is I can see that he did a destructive effect on this layer. You can see that he, let me set it to normal and see exactly which color he used. So I'm going to set it to normal at 100%. So that's the original image. And I think it becomes more clear that he probably selected the color here in the background and then just selected a large brush, you know, like this, and just kind of like painted like this, you know, right down the center. And I wouldn't necessarily do that because if I want to bring back some of that detail that was lost, now I can't. So always try to work non-destructively. You might want to reveal more of those trees in the background and now it's impossible to get them back. If you want to do this effect, it's very simple. All you do is create a layer above that. So we're going to create the effect non-destructively is what I meant. So we can create a layer above that and then just paint. See that? And just paint and you get the same result, same edges, and then you can disable that whenever you want. But unfortunately, he did it all in just one layer. So that becomes destructive, which means we can never go back and get those pixels that we lost. So it's very, very important to work non-destructively. So that is one big change I would make here, Ikra, on this background. So I think you had it at overlay and I think it was at 66%. So that's what you had. And then this is fantastic, by the way. You put all the other layers in a group, which is great. Your organization is pretty good, and you name most of your layers, which is fantastic. So I can see that most of these layers have names, only a few don't. We've talked about it in the past. If you have the move tool active, move tool here in the toolbar, and you right click over the canvas, you can see all the layers that are directly below the point that you clicked on. So they're really easy to select if you name them. For example, if I want to select the mountain, I can just click on mountain and the mountain layer gets selected here in the layers panel. So that's another good reason on why you should name your layers. But anyway, inside of this group, again, I'll disable the layer so that you can see what is in here. We have this layer with the model. And unfortunately, as you can see, when I delete the layer mask, he deleted the pixels on that layer as well. So if I zoom in, you can see that the mask is not great, or the way that the person deleted the pixels is not great. So I wouldn't delete the pixels because you might need them for something. If you made a mistake and you want to just fine tune, like maybe you want this hair strand to come out here, now you can't bring that back. And I know that he had the original image because he actually sent in a before and after shot, and I'll just show it to you guys. It's right here. This is the before and after. So he started with this image and then decided to desaturate the image and then cut out all those pixels. So again, we lose a lot of the information that is there that would allow us to create a better effect or to fine tune or just to bring things in or out. And obviously he also desaturated the image. So I would have done that with a layer mask and with a black and white adjustment layer to get the same result. And it's always editable and you can always come back and change it. Maybe you design a little later on in the process that you might want her skin tones to come through, and now you can't bring them. Obviously you can paint them back in, but then that just takes too much time and it's unnecessary work. So that is one big thing that I would recommend. Try to make sure that you do not delete pixels. Also, it helps with the fine tuning of the cutout. You can see how you have this solid line here that doesn't look very good. So again, with a layer mask, that would be much easier to fix.
So sorry, I'm going to interrupt you a second because
Yeah,
I
no problem.
always had probably one of my biggest struggle with Photoshop was masking. So I was wondering if you do have any like specific videos on your channel that could be like, you know, from a beginner or an advanced masking
Yeah,
techniques, because I think
yeah,
that that's a very hot topic. I was looking at the chat and Laura was like, yeah, learning masking, and I was like, yeah, that was probably one of my first thing that I was struggling with, and now I love. And of course, like
yeah,
I've been watching your videos as well, but you
yeah,
know better.
definitely. I'm actually, as you're talking, I'm looking for a link here on my channel that I'm gonna put in the chat.
And in the meantime, I want to say hi to Laura that was here in the chat. Stephen Booth, I see. I say last name all the time. Of course, Andreas, nice to see
Everyone's
you.
famous.
Ovid, everyone's famous. Umacron, nice to see you. And of course, we are here to rework, you know, the artist of the day's
Ikra,
artwork.
Ikra or Ikra. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, and I
And
apologize if I'm mispronouncing it.
but of course, if you're in the chat, that's a wonderful place where you can ask questions. So make sure to take advantage of this time together and ask a question to me or to Jesús regarding the work, or if you have anything else. So Biola says that goes to
Yeah.
that channel constantly. We like that channel.
Thank you, Viola. Yeah, so the link in the chat now that Sam just made clickable, thank you, Sam, is a playlist with 29 masking videos. So all these videos you see here are all the masking videos I have in Photoshop, or the Photoshop masking videos, I should say. So you can come and check them out. They're all, you know, I mean, the commonality between all of them is that you mask, but obviously all the videos talk about different ways of masking, so you can check those out.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I think that black conceals, white reveals, grace some translucency.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so back on this design, you can see that that's the one thing that I would have changed here. And then I think this is where he really hit the nail in the head. I like how he added all these different layers to create that effect. And the reason that I like the way that he did this is because he created multiple layers and you can adjust them and move them around. The one thing that I would have done differently though is he created basically a layer mask around the model, basically, right? So notice how like all these layer masks, and if you hold Alt and Windows Option on the Mac and click on the layer mask, you can actually see the mask. A couple of things. I would have not had I would have had a softer brush, and I would have had a brush with less spacing. And let me show you what I mean by that. When you have a brush, and you click on this down pointing on the icon, sorry, on this icon here, and your brush settings, basically what he had a brush that was like this with some space. And that's where you can see the dots there that are coming through. Watch what happens when I paint. I'm going to paint with black here just so you can see. See that? That's basically what he had there. And, you know, maybe the spacing wasn't so bad, but it was something maybe even less than that. It was maybe like this. And then the brush looks like it was squished, like maybe like this a little bit. So then you create that painting effect there, and I don't think that's effective for a mask. You can really see how sloppy the mask is. So I would be, for something like this, I would decrease the spacing and reduce the hardness and just paint in, you know, with a soft brush. Even if it's squished, that's fine. But you create, you know, just a better mask, in my opinion. I don't think it's necessary in this case to have the mask painted like that. So that's something that I would be careful with. But the one thing I was referencing earlier was that some of these layer masks, they're basically, he basically made a mask out of the silhouette of the person, and then he painted over it with the brush. I think you would get better results if you instead just clipped for example, let me show you here. I'm gonna hide these layers and I'll just delete this mask right here, right? You could get better results just by clipping it to the layer below. See how it's already concealed, and then just create a mask, and then just paint in, you know, like actually that was probably too much, but you know, I'm just going quickly here. You know, just paint in the areas that you want to reveal, you know, however you want to reveal them, like, you know, like he did there, and then unlink. This is really important. Unlinking the layer from the layer mask, because now you have the flexibility of moving the layer and repositioning it accordingly so that it fits your design better. And you don't have to worry about the edges of her body, like going, you know, like in this case here, watch what happens. So basically, this is the way that he did it. He did a silhouette link layer mask. If I want to move the image, notice that I can't, because now I have that silhouette there. See that? And if I unlink it, it kind of works, but not really. See that? So I would just do it. I would just clip it to the layer below, because it would just give you a better result. Because again, if you would have used the layer mask, and he decides, you know what, there's a part of the image that, you know, I don't want to use, like maybe I don't want to use this hat for whatever reason. When he hides that, he can now, with the technique that I just showed you, it doesn't really matter. I don't have to create a new mask, or I don't have to do anything, because it's clipped to the layer below. The layer below is controlling the visibility of the layer on top. So that gives you total control. And if you decide, you know what, I want to bring the hat back, then no problem. The hat comes back and the design still shows through, because everything is based on the layer below and not necessarily the layer mask that you created out of the layer below. Because if the layer below changes, the layer mask will not change. So that's what I would have done in all these other layers to create that effect. And what I wanted to do, and he finishes the design by adding a curves adjustment layer. So we don't have too much time, but what I wanted to do is I wanted to show you how I would have started a double exposure effect and how I would have set it up. I can't do it with this file since the cutout has been made destructively. In other words, I don't have the background anymore, and the color is now gone, so I can't bring the color back. So I'm gonna have to use a different image, but it'll work with this image or almost any image. But basically, let me see, I have this image here, and I'm just gonna open it up. It's an Adobe stock image. And what you can do with one of these images, any image really, is it'll be great if you take a photo of your subject behind, you know, like a solid background. In this case, this person is standing in front of a wall. It just makes things a little bit easier to control. But what I would do is select a solid color fill layer, press OK, drag that layer below the model. With the model layer selected, I can go into the properties panel, and under quick actions, I can select remove background. That will use Adobe Sensei machine learning technology to analyze the image, find the main subject, and then it applies a layer mask over it to reveal the background. It didn't do a good job in this area here, but that's okay. I'm just gonna select it and fill with white, and there you go. You can see that that's part of his arm there, shoulder. And what I'm going to do now is just bring in another image. I have another photo here that we can use. We can use this one here. Again, Adobe stock image. By the way, I don't know if you guys knew this, but I'm talking about Adobe stock, might as well show it. If you go into stock.adobe.com, this is where you can download assets for your designs, including photos, illustration, videos, audio, templates, 3D, a whole bunch of stuff. But there's now a new free section, so you can just go free. I'll just type in man and see what comes up. So all these images here are free. So if you go under the free section, you can find a lot of free images that you can use for your work. So, you know, maybe like this guy will be good for like what we're doing now. He's up against a solid background. But yeah, make sure that you come in here and see all the different free assets that you can get from Adobe Stock. Notice that we have photos, illustrations, and vectors. So if I'll select illustrations, I guess there's not that many free illustrations. Let's see if they have any free vectors. Yeah, so it looks like there's free vectors that you can download as well.
And by the way, anyway, so sorry, I'm just gonna interject a second to say that we're gonna be using also Adobe Stock today with some templates.
Awesome. But yeah, anyway, so Adobe Stock, you can get free assets. But anyway, back into the design. So I have a white background. I've isolated the main subject with a layer mask, and all I'm going to do with the layer on top is I'm going to use a blending mode called lighten. The lighten blending mode looks at the layer below and the layer on top on an individual pixel basis. So it looks at one pixel at a time, and then whatever pixel is brighter, the one in the bottom or the one on top, that one's the one that stays. It doesn't matter if it's on top or the bottom. So in this case, you can see that the reflections and the highlights of the city are showing because they're brighter than anything else underneath it. And I think this is great because also we don't even have to worry about creating a clipping mask because nothing's brighter than white. So then it automatically isolates the city image to the person because, again, nothing's brighter than white. So when I move this around, it just looks like it's inside that person. See that? Super cool. and I can just position this accordingly to make it seem like, I don't know, like the street, the guiding lines in the street are going up to his face. And I think this creates a super cool effect. And also, this is what I was talking about earlier. If you wanted to make the image black and white, you can just create a black and white adjustment layer. See that? Black and white. And what this adjustment layer does is with these sliders, it controls the brightness of the original color. So for example, if you remember, his jacket was this light blue jacket, so basically cyan. So when I adjust the cyan, see that? See how I'm making the jacket darker or brighter? See that? And the cool thing is that because this is a blending mode that looks at the brightness, when I change the brightness, I change the blend. More of the jacket, less of the jacket. See that? Less of the jacket, and blue as well. Just a little bit, not so much. So no matter the ethnicity, you will find skin tones in the reds and yellows. So see, I can make his face darker or brighter, so I can completely control how the image blends. See that? And you might be thinking, well, that's cool, but I want the color. Like, I want the color to come back. What do I do? Well, change the blending mode. With the black and white adjustment layer, if you change the blending mode to luminosity, the color comes back, and you can still control the brightness of those colors. See that? So now you can start fine tuning it so that it looks good with color. So, you know, do we want to see his eyes or maybe not? It totally depends, totally up to you. And also, you can do the same thing with the layer above. On this layer here, you can create a black and white adjustment layer. Now that's going to make everything black and white, but that's okay. We can click on this button here, the clipping mask button, and that confines the effect that this adjustment layer creates to just the layer below, which is the city. See that? Black and white, and now color, or color, and now black and white. And if I change the blending mode to luminosity, the color comes back, and I can still control the lights in the city. See that? So I can maybe make them a little bit brighter so they show more. See that? Totally up to you. Depends on the effect that you're going for, but you can completely control the brightness of these layers just by using this very simple setup. So I think that I think the point is clear, that by keeping everything non-destructive, you get more control. And if you have more control, you can get more creative because you have so many more options. And in this case, if for whatever reason I wanted to hide another part of his, you know, of his body, I mean, I wouldn't do this, I like it, but if I wanted to hide his hair, you know, I can. And if I later on decide, you know what, I like the hair, I'll bring it back, you can just simply paint with white to bring back those pixels. You're not really deleting them, you know. So I really think that working non-destructive is just the way to go, and it gives you so much more flexibility. Another thing that you can do once you have this set up, let's just assume that the color is great and that everything looks, you know, awesome, and I'm really happy with it, is you can always finalize everything by applying some sort of color that applies a cohesive effect. So in this case, something easy could be a color lookup adjustment layer. These are lookup tables. You can find them in Premiere and After Effects. Are meant for video, but you can use them in Photoshop here, and you can have all these. They're basically filters, if you want to think about them that way, and you can select one and then just tap on the down pointing arrow on the keyboard, and you can just see all these different color effects that you can apply to your image, and that might help you bring a cohesive color effect, just to make it all seem like it's part of the same, you know, design and all that. Obviously, you can do the same thing manually using Camera Raw or something like that, but you know, if you want to just take advantage of this filter and apply something quick and easy, then this is the way to go. So in this case, maybe I could go for, I'm trying to see which one I like best. Maybe I think I'm going to use that this yellow one, but I'll just reduce the opacity so it's not so strong. So maybe something like that. And when you have all this done, what I like to do is, you've seen me do this so many times here and rework it, is take this layer on top, hold shift, click on the layer on the bottom, right click, and convert it into a smart object. The smart object is a container that allows you to apply non-destructive adjustments, distortions, filters, and transformations. That means that you can always come back and edit it. And I think you can see a theme. I like to do things that I can always come back and edit it, because when you're working professionally, you have either a boss, client, art director who is not going to like what you do. So you want to be able to make those changes that they request easily and not spend a lot of time redoing it. And even if you are working for yourself and you're just doing it for fun, you might change your mind down the line. And again, it's easier to work non-destructively and be able to make those changes easier. what I'm going to do now that this is a smart object, I'm going to go into filter, camera raw filter, and I can just keep adjusting it here in camera raw. And if you wanted to, you can use the color mixer here to just make more adjustments to the saturation and specific colors, just so that they're more saturated, if you wanted to. But what I really wanted to do here is go into the effects panel. And from the effects panel, I'm going to add just a little bit of grain. You guys know that I like adding grain. And in this case, I probably would add more grain than I normally would, since I want like a really grungy effect. Something I often don't talk about is about this down pointing arrow. When you click on that, you get more controls for your grain. So you can have grain that is larger and maybe rougher, you know, and maybe that's just something that I'll do in this case, just because, you know, I want like a grungy rough effect on this. And I can go into the effects panel where I was and reduce the vignetting here just to like center my subject more to the scene. And in this case, I think that the center's looking a bit too dark. So I can go into the radio filter and then just create a radio right around his face and just maybe increase the exposure a little bit, maybe open up the shadows just to bring in more of his face, and do a little bit of saturation just to saturate that area more, and maybe even sharpen that area just so that, you know, when you sharpen, saturate, and brighten an area, it's going to catch more attention to that part. So I really want his face to stand out. So this is before and after. You can see the results there, and I can press OK when I'm done, and Photoshop will, of course, apply those changes. And again, working non-destructively. If I want to make changes to this, I can always double click on the camera raw filter label. The camera raw filter label comes up, and I can make whatever changes I want to. The changes that I made previously, I could delete them if I wanted to, and I can add new ones. Again, just to show you the importance of working non-destructively, I'm going to double click on the smart object. It will open up in a new tab, and you can see the layers that I had before. If I decide that I don't want my color lookup adjustment, I can just delete it, right? There, it's gone. When I close and save this, Photoshop will update the smart object, and it will update the camera raw filter, and it will apply everything to my edited smart object. See that? There it is. You can see the vignetting, you can see the grain, but the color effect is gone. I can come back into camera raw, and now I can apply the color effect in camera raw if I want to. For example, I can go into color grading, and from color grading, I can just start adjusting, you know, the midtones. Maybe I want there to be a little bit of yellow in the midtones, something like that. And maybe a little bit of blue in the shadows, something like this. And I can just keep adjusting these accordingly until I get an effect that I want. Something really cool about the color grading is that you saw that I just adjusted the midtones, shadows, and highlights, and I can even apply a global adjustment to those adjustments. So I can click on this icon here that says global, and now I can apply a global adjustment, like a global, like basically like a color on top of that. Which is great because I'm not overwriting the original adjustments that I made. I'm just adding on top of those. And if I want a global adjustment without these particular adjustments, I can just come here and just reset these, and it will not apply an effect. And also notice a little dot. You see this little dot underneath the circle? That means that there's an effect there. But when I reset the effect, the dot goes away, so there's no effect. So you can apply a color grade to the individual ranges of tones, highlights, midtones, and shadows, and then do a global adjustment, or you can just do a global adjustment or a combination of all that, whatever works best for you. But the point is that you have a lot of control in camera raw in terms of getting the effect that you want. And what I'm trying to recreate here is basically what I had before with the color lookup adjustment layer, is basically something that looked like that. And when I press OK, it will apply it on there. But I think that hopefully it's clear that by working non-destructively, you have so much flexibility. You can always come back and make changes. I could go in there and make the entire thing black and white if I wanted to, and rearrange the images however I wanted to, because everything is in its own layer. Everything has a layer mask. Everything has non-destructive effects. So that's basically the the whole spiel of
Well,
working non-destructively.
everyone was loving it. So I wanted to say a message from Aditya. I hope that I pronounce your name correctly. Amazing. I just learned how to apply camera raw filter not distractively. So people are absolutely loving the stream and everything that you were showing. Also, a couple things. I wanted to say hi to Valdo here. We didn't have the chance. He joined a little while ago. We have this little mom and son theme going on because since we found out that his mom and me have the same birthday. But also we had, and I want to make sure that I pronounce your name correctly, Tarak's studio that really wanted to know if the stream is live. So I didn't want to interrupt you, Sus. I messaged a little while ago. So yes, Tarak, we are streaming live. We are reading your comments. And by the way, if you are writing comments on YouTube, we're not going to be able to see it. So make sure to head on behance.net/live if you want me or Sus to read your comment and say hi to you. And of course, I want to take another second to say hi to Alberto and Arbita. What's up, family is back. Nice to see you guys. It's always a joy. And of course, Sean and everybody, Frank, everybody that is always here with us, Michelle as well. Fantastic.
I like how Alberto has a question that I think you may be able to answer. Alberto said, anyone knows what shampoo the model in this pic uses? I think Kladi would know. I'm assuming they use the same. You both use the same shampoo.
Yes, just a mix of argan oil and coconut and all these beautiful, nourishing curls. But yeah, it's got lovely, lovely hair. I was jealous as well.
Yeah.
Alberto is like, you believe us now? See by saying you're just amazing, Jesus.
I mean, the chat could all be. I mean, for all we know, Alberto's a bot. So I don't know. We're not. We believe you, but I'm still skeptical.
Especially because it's always like, "What's up? What's up? What's up?" So how do we know that you're not a bot? That's a very good question.
What is it? What is it called? The Turing test? Is that what it's called? Do you guys know what I'm talking about when I say the? Is it called the Turing test?
I think Turing test. Turner was something else. You can Google it.
Turing or turn, like when you're when you're talking to like a machine and you're trying to figure out if they're like a real person. Is that what it's called? I don't know what I'm talking about.
Me neither. So if you know in the chat, let us know because we don't know, and then you definitely know that we're live.
Yeah. Now I'm looking at everyone. Is Sean a bot? Like who's a bot here?
Christine, thank you so much for joining us, and of course Nor. Beautiful. So thank you so much, Jesus. I think everybody was loving what you were what you were sharing. Yes, Kladi's hair is always on point. I'm trying to keep the fizziness down because otherwise I don't want to reveal our green screen. You know, my hair go all curly and fizzy, and you can tell all the green reflecting on it of our behind the scenes. So yeah. So, Jesus, before we jump into my screen, do you want to... Yeah.
No, go ahead. Do I want to what?
I was just going to say, if you don't mind, please reminding us about Rework It for everyone that's just joined us now. And Alberto, if you're not a bot, I haven't seen a file yet. So
yeah.
Tell everybody that is not a bot how to submit their file.
Well, if he submits a file, he might be a AI bot that can auto-generate files. So we're going to need some more confirmation than just the file. So if you're just joining us for the first time, or if you've been watching and sort of lurking and haven't really submitted, I would recommend that you submit to iamkladi.com/reworkit so that Kladi and I can have an opportunity to rework your files, your Photoshop files, InDesign files, and Illustrator files. And actually, talking about InDesign and Illustrator, if you have an InDesign file or an Illustrator file that you might be thinking to submit, just go ahead and do it now, seriously, because we get a lot of Photoshop files, which is great, but not a lot of people submit InDesign and Illustrator files, and we want more of those. So there will be a higher chance of your work being featured if you submit those kinds of files. So if you're thinking about submitting one of those, might as well do it now before we get started with Kladi's project. But the website is iamkladi.com/reworkit, and make sure that you click on submit your design and fill out the form. Very easy. Your name, email, your Behance profile. We want to feature your work, so make sure that you include your Behance profile, a data consent agreement, and let us know what apps you use in the project. It's okay if you use different apps in this, just let us know the ones in the list. And also, if you have any specific questions or issues, let us know in the comment box and click on submit. So once again, iamkladi.com/reworkit. Make sure you submit that your work now. And also, before we finish or before we continue with Kladi's project, Kladi, why don't you show people a little bit of that Illustrator project you were working on, Conquest?
Oh yeah, that's a good start, especially because we're gonna be working in Illustrator. So great idea. Let's jump into my machine and already have the page there. So I was planning to talk about it. So thank you so much, Jesus, for mentioning. So we have this new project that I work with the amazing team at Adobe, and is a completely different approach to learning Illustrator. So if you are a beginner in Illustrator, this is the perfect way to learn how to use Illustrator tools. Is a game, and it's a game experience that is located on the website, and I believe that Sam has the link to share with you. So let me scroll down in the chat. Hopefully, yeah, he's already shared. Why am I even talking? Sam has already placed the link in the chat. So if you want to go ahead and click on the link, you can just start to participate to the game. And that's super easy. The very first video that you will find on the landing page will introduce you to the story. The story is the story of Piper, which is a space explorer. And I'm just going to run it real quick so you can see a little bit of it. So we have Piper, the space explorer that is lost in Planet Illustrator. And you actually have to help her out to come back to Earth. In order to do so, she will have to collect some badges and some Illustrator tools. So you will see she will show you the Illustrator tools, and you can actually click on the video and you will have an artboard coming up. And from the artboard, you'll be able to follow the instruction and complete the tasks, and then go back to the video and follow along and keep watching until you get to the end of the mission. And as you can see, Piper, yep.
I have one quick question, Kladi. Who designed all those creatures and Piper and all that?
I did. So
I have another question. Who animated everything?
I did, with your help.
I have another question. Who came up with the story and the instructional material?
Yes. So I've done a lot of work.
This is all Kladi's baby. So make sure that you support it. It's obviously a project through Adobe, and it helps you learn Illustrator. So it maybe actually, you know what? One day maybe you can do I don't know if I'll rework it, but maybe an Adobe session on how you combine Illustrator with After Effects to create these animations.
That'll be super, super cool. And also, I wanted to give a couple of shout outs. So I just want to give a shout out to my amazing friend and colleague, Stina Johns. Although I designed and created the character, she helped me to speed up this big project, because you will see there are so many different missions. She helped me to create more different designs based on the character that I created. So thank you so much to Stina. She's an amazing illustrator, so go and check her out. I probably tomorrow, we're here tomorrow, so probably I want to share Stina work as well. But once you click on get started, you will actually start with the first mission. And as you can see, there are 3 different missions. There are 3 levels per each missions. So probably in about 25 minutes, you'll be helping Piper to go back to Earth, and also get to know all the little aliens, the little Planet Illustrator, because those are like all Illustrator inhabitants that are here helping Piper out to go back to Earth. So hopefully you will enjoy it. If you did try it, do let me know. It was absolutely amazing fun. And Michelle is saying, yes, Illustrator and After Effects. I absolutely love it. I gotta give some credit to Jesus, because he did, help me out a little to make it happen. But it's teamwork is always dream work, they say. So it was definitely a fun project. So let me know if you try it out. I would love to have feedback. The project's just launched, so it's pretty new, and I really look forward to. You can hit me up on Instagram, perhaps. Let me see if I can just as well just go to my Instagram real quick, although I'm super conscious of the time right now. My Instagram is at I am Kladi, and there I don't even know how to use Instagram anymore. If you head on Instagram, you can message me. That's the place where you find me more often, and I reply. And you can also find a lot of Illustrator tips and tricks and videos. So that's also a good place if you want to learn more Illustrator. But talking of Illustrator, let me focus on Daniel Paul, and I'm going to try to pronounce your last name, Kairula. Hopefully I haven't distorted that too much. And you can see his amazing page. So if you want to go ahead and check out Daniel work, behance.net/Daniel Kairula, you'll be able to see his bold and gorgeous portfolio. I was super excited to see Daniel work, to the point that we're actually he's helping me out on a new project that I'm working on. So that's another great reason why you should submit your portfolio and get in touch and participate to rework it, because you never know what's going to happen. Me and Daniel are actually working together right now. So I thought it was amazing, because I did generally get excited about his portfolio. So I'm super happy to feature him and share his work. But I also, feel free and go ahead and check all his different works. He has different projects with Illustrator, Photoshop, but you can tell perhaps from his work that Illustrator is at the core of what it does. I love this packaging. That's probably one of the work that I love the most. Beautiful color palette. Really want to give him a big shout out. And I also have his Instagram page where he posts more his drawings, so you can see a little bit of the behind the scenes of the actual work. Fantastic. So let's jump into Illustrator so we can actually see his file that is submitted, and we can start to rework it. So as you can see, the file that Daniel has submitted is pretty representative of his portfolio. In fact, it's very bright and colorful and with attention to layout. Type is usually quite readable and clean, but it really likes to play with geometric shapes and clean type. And I think that that's first and foremost a great choice. As usual, when we're here at Rework It, we're here to show how to make a file better, but also to really, I'm always happy to give a shout out when people do the right thing. I think that's really important to reinforce as well. The reason why I say that it's a good choice to choose a clean type when working with so many shapes is to enhance legibility. So imagine if you had a busy font with such a busy background, it would have become a nightmare to read. So unless you're actually creating just an art piece, where readability and legibility is not the most important thing, make sure to follow these tips that Daniel has done really nicely here, in terms of having a very busy background, but at the same time put in against a very simple typeface that will be pretty easy to read. Now, there are a few more tips in which you can increase the legibility of a project, and I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do that. But before we get started, I'm going to start from the very, very basics of when I open a file. And as you probably know, if you've been here with us at Rework It, the first thing that usually me and Jesús looked at a rework when we are doing our Rework It is layers. So I was a little bit like, what's going on here, Daniel, with the layers? We have only one layer, so much going on, and only one layer. So by the way, just so you know, if you never worked with layers before and you are new with Illustrator, every single file will come with one layer. Layer, just little container that will allow you, let me go ahead and click on the side arrow to show you, they contain all the elements inside the work, inside your artboard. And the reason why is important to separate layers is to have more control over your work. So look what happens here. If I want to select the text and I click and drag, I end up selecting the graphic as well. And I don't want to break this pretty design. So how do we make sure that we can isolate different shapes? Of course, you can group them, but in order to work professionally and to make sure that whenever you share your file or you pass file to your clients or printers, that's they will going to be happy to be working with you, is definitely using the layers panel appropriately. So a bit of a prop for the work. Of course, you've done a fantastic job, but I need to make sure that I do give tips as well. And of course, creating a new layer by clicking at the bottom of the layer panel and adding a specific layer for example, type. So in this case, I'm going to just double click on the layer and call it type. And I'm going to zoom in for those of you that are not familiar with the layer structures. It's very important to remember that any layer that sits on top of another will be displayed in front. So let's go ahead and see what happened. I'm going to click on the side arrow next to the first layer, and then I'm going to go ahead and click and select all these little text that I can already see that those layers contain text. We can do so by selecting them from the layers panel, or I could have selected directly into the graphic. That's absolutely the same thing. And then we can start to drag it into the new layer, which was the type layer. Of course, you can select multiple layer by selecting the first one and then holding the shift key and then selecting the second one. And I'm going to go ahead and show you what happens if, now that I have the text into a separate layer, I go ahead and drag it underneath the layer number one. The text disappears. So as I said before, remember the order of the layer stack is extremely important in order to make sure that your items are displayed. If sometimes you use layers and things disappear, most likely will be on a layer below. So now that I have isolated almost all the type, I think the 2018 was the one that it was missing. You can first of all see that the color of the layer represents and reflects also the color of the bounding box. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in into the file. If you see, if I click now into the type, we will have a red bounding box, which is the same color of the layer. By the way, you can always personalize that by double clicking on the layer. And you see you have a little color swatch there. You can use any color you want. Let's make it, of course, a different color. Let's make it yellow, for example. And simply click on OK. And as you can see, now that I select the text, the bounding box is yellow. While for the graphic, everything is on a blue layer, so it will, the bounding box and the outline will be also blue. So what I'm going to do now is to lock the layer by clicking on the little lock icon, and make sure that I press Command A so I can select everything that of course is going to be on a yellow bounding box because it's on my text layers. And what I'm going to do is to head to Window, which is, by the way, the place where all the panels are located. So if you ever hear me mentioning any panels, or if you're looking for any panels when you watch the tutorials or you're working in Illustrator and you cannot see it inside your workspace, head under the Window menu. Once you choose Window, you'll be able to discover all the amazing panels that belong to the Illustrator workspace. And the one that I'm looking, do you have any question, Jesús, or there is anything?
No, I was just gonna say, make sure that you name all your paths.
Make sure, no. In Illustrator, that can become a little bit tricky. I tried going down that path of naming the path, and it wasn't
every single path.
I tried, and then I gave up. And then I realized that you can actually do some pretty good things just simply by naming your layers. So.
Yeah.
But do let me know. Feel free to interrupt me if there is any questions. So
yeah, there's no questions yet, but feel free to ask questions in the chat.
Yes. So as I mentioned, I'm going to go ahead and choose Window and then select the Appearance panel. And from here, I can start to add some character to my text. So what I was worried about mainly regarding this piece was legibility. And I really hope and pray that my laptop is actually going to take this effect. Sometimes it can get a little overwhelmed because as you know, I do a lot of work from this machine. So what I was suggesting is to add a drop shadow to the text. And the way that you can do that is simply by heading to the Appearance panel. You will find under the Window menu, and then head under the Illustrator effect. As you can see, we have Illustrator effects and also Photoshop effects, but in particular, I'm looking for the Illustrator effects under the Stylize menu. And here it is, it's called Drop Shadow. As soon as if you point it up, it's just right above you. So if you just on the other side, on the other hand, yeah, here it is. Perfect. That's the Drop Shadow effect that I look to apply. Yeah, perfect. And it looks like my computer is behaving correctly. And what I'm going to do here, you can add the opacity. So I tend to use nothing that is more than 50% because I believe that a drop shadow is nice when it's subtle. So anything between 30, around 30, I think they start to give the lift. So it really lifts the text up so it doesn't get flattened inside the graphics. But at the same time, it's not too strong. And the same with the offset. I try to keep the offset around less than 10. Usually 5 or 3 are the number that I go for. And I play with the blur so we have a little bit more of a spread of our graphic. Now regarding the color, in this case I just have a black and a white text, so I will probably choose a gray. But something that I probably heard from one of your videos, to be completely honest, I need to give you some credit, is to use a shadow color when you use a drop shadow that is a darker shade of the color that you're using. So let's say that, for example, the color was an orange. In this case, I will use a drop shade color that is the drop shadow color, or a shadow color that is a brown, and so on. So for a pink color, a magenta color will be like a purple. So in this case, I'm probably gonna go ahead and just select a gray color so there is not too much of a contrast with the white. And then make sure to click on the preview to see the before and after. Now, as you can see, my machine is not showing much of a difference between the preview. If that happens, is because probably your machine, like mine, is a little tired. So it just will take a really long time to render in between. So that's just usually when I work on my desktop, I can see the preview happening much faster. So just be mindful that sometimes you just gotta hang on if your little hamster that is inside your laptop is as low as mine. And I see that there is a question.
I don't
From
see a
Kai.
question.
So are we allowed to ask questions about general issue we're having in Illustrator on a stream chat? Yes, feel free to ask any question on Illustrator. Of course, I cannot promise that I can answer all your questions. I'm only human. I'm not a bot. And but I absolutely...
You're not a bot like who's the bot here? Sean, and who else? We got two bots here. Sean and was it Noir, the other bot?
I think it was Alberto.
Alberto, yeah, that's right. Noir might be a bot too. So we got three bots.
And so make sure to go ahead and click OK. So yeah, feel free to ask any question. Make sure to click on OK and look what happened here. So we have a new drop shadow effect that is layered under our appearance. We can use the eye icon to toggle the visibility. So for example, if you're working with your clients, first thing that I will do in this file, if I have a client showing up or my art director or someone that is going to do a review, first thing that I will do is to click on the view menu and select trim view. The trim view will allow to get rid of everything that is outside the artboard to make your file looks nice and clean, almost as if you created a mask. So we cut out all the elements that are not relevant for our final piece. And all we have to do is to click on the drop shadow little eye icon under the appearance panel to see the different effects. And of course here you can add a different color fill, you can add more effect. Hopefully tomorrow we're probably going to go in depth a little bit with 3D, but I know that we have only a few more minutes. Just to mention, just because I mentioned 3D and I don't like just to throw things there and not show them. If you would like to play with a 3D effect, you can do so very quickly in Illustrator, especially with type. It's such an amazing feature here under the appearance panel. Always by clicking the effect icon located at the bottom of the panel, make sure to select 3D. And then I usually go for the extrude and bevel effect. And from here, all you have to do is to select one of the presets positions. In this case, I usually go for a isometric top. That's the sort of style that I like. And then you can, of course, customize the way that is rendered by using this little cube, or also by using these little settings that will allow you to give you at different angles of the different axes here. So
two things. I want to give you a three minute warning, and also shout outs to Gus, who's in the chat. Hey Gus, good to see you. He may also be a bot.
Hi Gus, nice to see you. Fantastic. We only have 3 minutes.
Yes.
Oh, I really want to. Well,
less than that.
Thankfully, we have tomorrow. We have tomorrow as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and go back and click on the view, and then deselect trim view to show our file. So before I also mentioned a clipping mask, which is another way to tidy up your file when you're done. So if you want to make sure that you hide all the other area of your graphic, first of all, make sure that the layer that they are located in is unlocked. So we're going to go ahead back to our layer, click on the lock to unlock the layer. And then I'm going to click on the rectangle tool and click once and actually go over with my mouse until it says intersect from one of the origin. Here it is. Those are the wonderful smart guys that are in Illustrator, and click once if you know the exact dimension of your artboard. Otherwise, click and drag until you cover your entire artboard, just like so. Then simply press the Shift key and select the graphic that are coming outside the bleed of the artboard, and making sure that your shape is above your graphics that you want to include inside the clipping mask. Use the shortcut Command 7 in order to create the clipping mask. So it looks like that there is more than one graphic here that I have to select. So that's another good tip. Perhaps I'm going to go ahead and select everything and deselect my rectangle and press Command G. And that's another good tip. In order to create a clipping mask, you must group or create a compound path with all the element. And here it is. Now it's working because we grouped all the element. And just in case you don't know, I know it might sound a very simple tips, but it's important for those of you that are starting. In order to group elements, all you have to do is to click on them, hold the Shift key to select the other one that are outside the selection, and then simply use the Command G shortcut on a Mac. That will be the Control G on a Windows in order to group them. And here it is. We already cleaned the file. Tomorrow I'm going to go back and start from this one because I really wanted to show you how to mock it up. I wanted to talk about Adobe Stock, but luckily we have tomorrow. How much time do we have, Jesus?
About a minute.
So before we finish off, I'm going to keep talking about this file, and I really wanted to show you how to recolor it. So make sure to stay tuned tomorrow to see more about that. I want to remind everybody that joined us on how to submit the file. Do you want to do it, Jesus, or should I just go real quick?
Do it since you're on your screen now.
Fantastic. So in order to submit your file, head to iamkladi.com/reworkit and click on the submit your design and fill in the form. Make sure to share with us your email, your Behance profile, so we can give you a shout out, and try to name your file with your name. That will make our life so much easier. I always forget to say that, but that will be such a wonderful help for us.
Yeah. So make sure. Sorry for interrupting, Kladi. I just want to say, make sure you submit your files now before you start watching Paul, because Paul is coming up next with a Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge. So before you start watching Paul, make sure you submit your files into iamkladi.com/reworkit.
Yes, and thank you so much for joining us. So it's been wonderful. Thank you so much, Jesus. It's been, as usual, a pleasure. And we'll see you tomorrow. So submit your file. We might be able to pick your file today for tomorrow. Thank you so much, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.